All right, peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Welcome, 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 everyone. We are back. We are live. And our topic tonight is the war on the black man. We're going to be looking at the deconstruction, defamation, and our divine duty to rebuild. This program will connect the historical and modern strategies used to dehumanize the black man. And we're going to look to see what must be done that we have to do to rebuild the black man. Um, we know that black men are not, I don't know if I can say this properly, which that black men are not seen as equal men
Mm,
to white folks in America. Uh,
mm.
but, my hesitant with that, Doc, because I think I wouldn't say all, maybe, um, but definitely the majority
Okay.
um, are not seen as equal. What's your thoughts on that?
You know, before I can answer that, I would look for clarity and really ask simple question: Who's doing the evaluation, and what is the evaluation criterion? If the evaluation is occurring without any understanding or any comprehension of historical context, historical events, and things like that, then the vast majority of not just black men, but also white men are going to come up short. If your evaluation criterion rests upon the idea of who is a suitable provider and protector, most men around the globe are going to come up woefully short. I'll just say it that way. You're going to come up woefully short. But when you're talking about black men in particular, that provider and protector thing is going to cause them to come up short, not because there's any inadequacy with them, but solely because the demands that are put upon people who are in many ways, I don't believe, and you know this, I've said this here before, I don't believe in the middle class. I believe that you're either elite or you're non-elite. And we have a lot of people who are, once again, their evaluation criterion is going to be predicated upon the idea of, can you provide at an elite status? Can you, on your first date, if you're trying to get to know a lady, and when I say lady, I can't say young lady anymore, because listening to much of the foolishness that we're hearing from sisters 50 and above,
Mhm.
they seem to have no comprehension of what is reasonable, what is understandable, in regards to being black in a capitalist country as a employee, not necessarily an entrepreneur.
Mm. Okay, okay. So when we're looking at the historical precedents of black men post-slavery,
Mhm.
how were black men portrayed during after slavery and Jim Crow to sort of justify oppression?
Well, the thing is that the justification for oppression transitions over time.
Hmm.
If you go and you look at what's being said about black men during the institution of slavery, and this is one of the craziest justifications for American chattel slavery. It was quite simply, when the calls for freedom were being made, Democratic Party slaveholders said quite simply, that's the cruelest thing that you could ever do to those people, because in many ways they're feeble-minded. They're incapable of taking care of themselves. We provide structure to them, and we do have a few who actually go the full Monty and say, if you let them go free, they're going to, within 1 to 2 generations, revert back to the savagery that we extracted them from in Africa. That's when our presence is in many ways needed for them to survive as far as labor goes. However, once the institution of slavery is going to officially decline, kinda, with the 13th Amendment. I always get after my students with the 13th Amendment, because they only read that first stanza of the,
Mhm.
of the 13th Amendment, which is quite simply it abolishes slavery. But if they keep reading, I tell them that you'll see that if you are convicted of a crime, you can be enslaved, which is a game changer in many ways. Um, so once they go free, we're
Mhm.
going to see a different justification for their oppression. Now it goes from them being docile, feeble-minded, um, you know, kind of marginalized on the bell curve, to a situation where they're dangerous. They have to be watched because at a moment's notice they'll pull out knives and razors and they'll get to cutting. And it's they're talking about the same population, but because they have pretty much the same desire, which is
Mhm.
to oppress these people, their justification is going to change. So it shifts over time as to who black folk are and how you handle and tend to them and their needs. There are times when they almost speak about us as if we're children and operate from the position of don't spare the rod. Okay, they need to be punished. They need to be whipped into shape and what have you.
Mm. So then, and I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. So as you say, over time, the thought changes
Okay.
from they got to think for us.
Hmm.
Then once we out of slavery, oh, he's a brute. He's wild savage. Got to
Yeah,
be controlled.
he's a criminal, and if he's not reeled in
Mhm.
immediately, that you looking at a return of Shaka Zulu. You're talking about the worst stereotypical ideas in the white imagination are going to come to fruition. And there is a base, sort of a baseline thought that is going through all of that, and that is quite simply one of the more laughable things about history, and it
Mhm.
is that white folks civilized us, and there's nothing that could be that. Of course, there's nothing that could be further from the truth. So we have to sit under the control and the heel of white folk, or we will revert back to what we used to be, as if it's encoded into our DNA, as if it was ever true from the very beginning.
Mm. And so, would you label, um, I guess, Jim Crow forward? Um, Black man being irresponsible, can't take care of his own family. Would you say that that was what they considered us at that time?
Well, no, I would say that when you're talking about the post-slavery period, and especially if you're talking about black codes and you're talking about Jim Crow, it is structured, and the structure is pliable. You'll like this reference right here. It reminds us of Tom Landry's the flex defense, where it would bend but not break. It's very
Mm,
pliable. Jim
mm,
Crow and the black codes are very similar. They can be they are in many ways the personification of the idea of necessity is the mother of all invention. When black folk began to try to flee the South, they
mhm,
altered the rules and say it's even impermissible for you now to walk near railroad tracks because they have a fear that you're going to jump on a train and you're going to escape the South, and they need your labor in the South, despite the way that they treat you like mess. So, as a necessity comes up, They will create a law, a rule, a custom, what have you. You think about the idea of the generation of miscegenation laws, you know,
Hmm.
black and white relationships. That was birthed out of the idea of poor people, indentured servants and enslaved folk getting their heads together and realizing that they both have a common enemy. If we go back to colonial America and we take a look at Nathaniel Bacon, Bacon's Rebellion. Bacon's
Hmm.
Rebellion was a multiracial move. And so, in the wake of that, we see the creation of laws that are going to drive wedges between black indentured servants and enslaved and white indentured servants. So you have this ability to mold the system to serve your interests, your best interests, and their best interest has always been aimed at exploiting black labor in the long game. Make no mistake about that.
Hmm.
And it's also, and we see this, we don't talk about it. No one's talking about this in the public sphere, but they actually should. That the actions of poor white folk, indentured servants, has the top of their priority has not even been their own economic well-being. It has been satisfying their addiction to whiteness. It is like heroin. It is a drug that they have to get. You know the famous quote that President Lyndon Baines Johnson said. He said, if you give a white man someone to look down upon, you can
Hmm.
empty his pockets. He said, hell, he'll empty his pockets for you. So
Hmm.
there's that addiction to whiteness where they're able to say, at least I ain't them.
Hmm.
And instead of looking at it, and you talk about being dim-witted, you talk about the idea of not being able to get out of your own way. That sums up working class white folk 100% of the time. And I don't care if you're talking about those on the left or those on the right, because when you begin to examine something like, and talking about black men were brought here to work.
Hmm.
Okay. And when you're talking about the expectations of black men in American society, those things have been molded and shifted as almost a replication of what white men do.
Hmm.
So white men are able to take care of their family. You should be able to do that as well. Totally ignoring and devoid of the idea of you're in a completely different situation in different historical context. So in many ways, and really in every way, black men are going to be maligned and disregarded by even their own, because their own are going to be looking at not just the ordinary working class white guy.
Hmm.
They're going to be looking at Mr. Cartwright, the one
Hmm.
that has inherited and been bequeathed all of these material goods. For Mr. Cartwright, going out and buying a $5,000 purse is nothing. For working class men, regardless of their race or their ethnicity, that blows up their entire budget, probably for 3 4 months. Even if it might lead them to actually being homeless.
Hmm.
If this government shutdown hasn't taught us anything else, it should teach us how, number one, tenuously employed employees are. That's number one. But also number two, and you're the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. It should teach us also how little savings, even those who are working for the government and are making a pretty good penny, seemingly it appears, by seeing them standing in food lines and food banks talking, in those areas in particular, talking about
Mhm.
how they're seeing so many more people, it really does reek of y'all been living paycheck to paycheck, that there is no savings because missing one check has got you in a food line at a food bank, and you're, and this is the common thing that we've heard and we'll continue to hear, and it is quite simply that black women are the most educated, which is not true. They're starting all these businesses, they're doing X, Y, and Z. Well, the question becomes, where's that money at then? If you're doing this well financially, where's
Mhm.
that money at? And the truth of the matter is that for far too many of our people, they have champagne taste, but a beer budget.
Mm. Mm. Exactly. Exactly. Looking at the what I'm going to call the attack on the black man,
Mhm.
slavery on to current day.
Mhm.
At some point, it definitely had to take on a major burden on black men, on the black woman, and on the black child. How do you see the black woman and the black child dealing with the black man through those time periods, slavery, then after slavery, Jim Crow? How do you see that
It's
development?
it's it's in many ways impossible to answer that because black folk are not a monolithic population. Um, so I would not even attempt to answer that. But what I will say is that, and when we look at black children in particular,
Mhm.
Frederick Douglass talks about this. Douglass is caught in between. It is this very weird situation, and it is his father, is his biological father, black man, is
Mhm.
calling him to come at the same time that his owner is calling him to come.
Mhm.
Who holds who holds the most power? The man who owns you, or the man that gave you the breath of life? The very, you came from this man. So when you're talking about those situations and how people are going to react, that it's almost a case by case basis. But what we do know is that innately, instinctually, there are certain things about, despite what people want to say, um, about there being nothing, no roles assigned to genders or things like that. The truth of the matter is that for the average, meaning above 50.1% of
Mhm.
black women, they want to be taken care of as
Mhm.
far as have some creature comforts, to be able to not have their back against the wall. That puts them in a very perilous position in regards to being able to look at black men as the provider and the protector. And we constantly hear these ideas of black folk wanting to, and we, once again, we don't speak about it in this verse, but black women are seemingly 60, 70, 80 years behind. Some black women are 60, 70, 80 years behind. And they're not even looking at black America when they look back for a to construct the provider role, the provider male role. They're looking at white men who were able to take care of their families on a single income. The
Mhm.
woman was able to stay at home. That's their model. If they were looking at the black example, what they would see, and history bears this out. If you go and you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, let's just focus on Montgomery bus boycott for a second.
Mhm.
Who's on those buses?
Black women.
Black women. So that's a clear sign that black women are working,
Hmm.
that black America has always been a two income family. Okay. You had to have two incomes to come in, to make it work. So black women are going and doing day work for white families, and black men are off doing some mechanical labor intensive job themselves. So the the idea that in the new millennium you can whitewash the black male experience and say, well, you're lesser than a man because you're not doing what white men did in 1915, 1920. That's in many ways what's being said.
Hmm.
Okay, there's probably no clearer sign of historical illiteracy being espoused in the public arena than that. And there's also something to be said for your lack of knowing being allowed to be your North Star. So in many ways, you are plumb dumb crazy. If you look at some of these studies that people do, where they're asking women, how much do you think the average male makes, and when do you think that he's going to make that amount of money? They have absolutely positively no idea. I met a sister who told me that 8 out of 10, okay, 4 out of 5 black men make over $100,000.
Mm.
Now, if that's your basis, where you believe that this brother is bringing in somewhere between 8,500 to 10 grand a month, and of course, they're not factoring in taxes or anything like that,
Hmm.
with that money. If you're thinking that, let's be very clear, your demands are going to be unreasonable because you think that he is probably sitting on, because for most people, I would say maybe 4 grand is a good number to talk about their living expenses for a month, as far as rent, mortgage, car note, insurances, and what have you. If you're thinking that he's bringing in twice that much, you're operating from a fallacious belief that he's sitting over there on 5 grand after he pays everything.
Right.
And if once again, if we go back to the government shutdown, who's sitting on 5 grand that ain't playing in a league that's black?
Hmm.
You know, you ain't playing for the Timberwolves or for the Chargers. You really don't have it like that. And those who are, you know, everyday working stiffs that are making 70, 80 grand that have gone to college, come on. We're still, I'm in this group myself. We're still sending first generation college students there. So you got loans. Nobody in your
Hmm.
family could foot your bill. They
Hmm.
didn't know how to foot your bill if they
Hmm.
could. So you have all those things going in when you're talking about how black men are being viewed, and how are they being viewed in regards to by their children. If you're raising up children who do not respect your value as a person, and they put your value solely on material items and things like that, you're going to be looked at as lesser than, as a man, solely on that criterion.
Hmm.
And that matter grows exponentially more difficult and terse when that child is being raised by the mother, because the answer is always going to be, well, no, we I can't get you that if your daddy had. And they're going to fill in all those gaps with whatever they want to, and none of them are going to be uplifting or edifying black men.
Mm. Did that, could the black woman at any of these time points, um, I can't say put a stop to it, but
To stop
deal
what?
with the defamation of black men, the attack on black manhood? Could
Certainly,
she, huh?
certainly, most certainly. And the truth of the matter is, and that's why these discussions are always so dangerous. We have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of black women who do that. However, if it bleeds, it leads. There is something seductive, attractive about drama and nonsense. And those are the ones who are out in the street acting a fool. But I know people who have gotten divorced, um, and they get along perfectly fine. They're
Mhm.
two adults, they co-parent their children. And I know some other situations that are the exact opposite.
Mhm.
So yeah, they could do it. You could stop maligning black men if you wanted to. But when you're coming out of a extended long tradition of that's what we do as women in this family, I had someone tell me, I'm gonna bury you before I'm done with you.
Mm.
What kind of damn values is that?
Mm.
What kind of thought is that? And I heard the mother and the daughter say that to somebody, that,
Oh,
that
wow.
I'm gonna bury you before I'm done. Yeah, it's the family tradition. It's what they do. Okay.
Mm.
So when you're dealing with
Mm.
that type of persona, there's nothing you can do. And let's be very clear. And this is a message that black men need to hear. It's a message that for me, I wish that someone had really sat me down and really talked to me about this. But once again, um, I wasn't mentored by men who lived in a world where their marriages failed. Okay.
Mhm.
I can't point to anyone in my immediate family, the generation above me, whose marriages failed. So you take that for granted that you get with somebody, y'all are like minded, and boom, 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 and it's going to work out. Nothing could be further from the truth. Not in present day society. So black men need to hear that the single most important decision that you're going to make is who you marry.
Mhm.
Period. Above if you're going to college, not going to college, anything else, it is that decision, because that decision is the one that can cause you to have to reset your life due to no fault of your own. And so you have people who actually get it, and there's a lot of black women who get it. Let's not paint black women as being illogical, and because we were raised in the same households that they were. And
Mhm.
just as you have who's the brother, Stefan Diggs,
Mhm.
when his teammates were asked in the locker room, who wouldn't you want your daughter or your sister or some female in your family to date? Without hesitation, each and every one of them said Stefan Diggs.
Mm.
So now he was raised in a certain situation probably where that was normal. The way he behaves is normal. When you look at some of the hellions of that black women are, they rail against, and oh well, black men and blah blah. Well, I guarantee you that he has sisters, and there's no way that you can tell me that the socialization process that he did or did not get that turned him into a hellion is not the same one his sisters went through.
Mm.
And that's troubling right there, because in many ways what you're dealing with is people who have been damaged. Hell, I believe some of their I believe some people get bad genes, and you combine those bad genes with an absence of appropriate socialization and understanding. Oh, you got a problem on your hands.
Mm. Mm. A very, very big problem. So,
Yes.
Doc, looking at the architect of the black brute or the irresponsible buffoon
Uh-huh.
served as tools of control.
Yeah.
But when you get into the world of labor, how does this affect black men in the trying to get a job, trying to keep a job, and the economic exclusion to black men?
Well, I mean, you're viewed through that lens. Your reputation precedes you, and people are not having, especially when you talk about from a when you talk about black men, if it's negative,
Hmm.
it is like a comprehensive covering, like a shadow that covers
Mm.
all of us. That is the personification of who you are. When you see brothers out in the street acting a fool, doing whatever they do, okay, that affects me and you. And I think it was last week we were talking, and I talked about a guy that I went to high school with by the name of Bob Young. He's some type of actor now, going under the name Skylar or something like that. But I've never forgotten this. Matter of fact, I know it was because it was last week, because we were talking about schools and integration and things like that. And I'll never forget that Bob said to me, "Hey Jones, you know what? You're a good guy. You're a credit to your race."
Hmm.
The positive elements of our community are the exception in their worldview.
Mm.
Okay. Whereas the ordinary, everyday, getting in trouble, shiftless, not doing anything, that's who you really are. But every once in a while, one of y'all are able to develop yourselves and make something of yourself. That's how you're viewed. So when you're talking about this idea of the trickster, the fool, let's just name him Martin Lawrence's character on Martin.
Okay.
Okay, Martin was in many ways very silly. Okay,
Hmm.
very comedic, wasting time. It was Gina that was the one that was on top of it. Okay, that person, that persona, that idea is what people have in their minds when they deal with you. It is in many ways, it could be termed a racial brand, a racial image. Just think about it this way. One of my best friend, Damon Thomas, we talk about these very crazy things, and he's up in Bedford Stuyvesant, up in Brooklyn, the land of Biggie. We talked about when the Powerball was like $2-3 billion. If we hit it, what would we do? Now we're talking about racial brand, okay, and how your reputation precedes you. I talked about how I would try and invest mine, and this and that. I would look into some investments, and he said, "Man, damn that! I'm calling the Jews." Okay, he said, "If anybody know how to take care of the money and make sure it don't run out, it's the Jews." Okay, where does that come from? That's their racial brand.
Right.
Their racial brand is economics and all of that. What is our racial brand? What is the reputation of black men? And the truth of the matter is that one bad apple can spoil a whole bunch. So all you need is one person, and this is a brother that for me, I have to be. I believe he is the black Jerry Lee Lewis, but I got to be in the right mood for me to watch this brother, because it's gonna rub me the wrong way. Marlon Wayans.
Mm,
Okay. He has this way of doing this quirky physical comedy.
hmm
Damon Wayans kind of had that same thing going on when him and David Allen Greer were on In Living Color and they were doing Men on Films. Okay. That portrayal of black men in that light, people see that. And they automatically, I believe that they willfully desire to to see us through that lens.
hmm
And by seeing us through that lens, it's going to in every way color how we're viewed. And the most unfortunate part about this is quite simply we ain't Du Bois talked about this in the Souls of Black Folk when he says it is a peculiar sensation to view oneself through the eyes of another. I was at a
hmm
conference a couple weeks back, and I arrived to sessions early. Okay, I walk slower than most people, so I have to plan where I'm going to go, and when I get there, I get there, and I sit
hmm
down. I try to get there early so that so I'm not late and have to, try and squeeze in and what have you. So I get to the session early, and it's a 8:30, 9 o'clock session, whenever the first session was. And two of my colleagues were not there.
hmm
And they were on the panel. They were two-thirds of the panel. One was moderating, one was presenting, and then there was this other brother from from Maryland or the DC, Virginia area. He had his family there, some of his extended family there. I guess they lived in Houston or Texas or whatever. And he was going to be talking about their family history. And he's talking about it was one of the stupidest, presentations. I'd have been ashamed to do it if I was him. But he was talking about the white folk who used to own them and what path they took from Ireland or wherever the hell they came from. And then they moved to so and so, and then they moved to so and so. Now at this time, if you look at the records, they owned 80 black people. I'm like, Negro, are you for real? But he was for real. Now he says, because we're waiting on my colleagues to get there. He says, yeah, 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 because I know last night they had a big old shindig, you know, a party after the conference. And you know how them Prairie View Negroes do. You know how they do. They go out, they get good and drunk, and they probably couldn't even wake up this morning. Now, I'm furious.
mm
You get what I'm saying? I'm furious
Exactly.
because I know these two brothers, okay,
Mm,
and that ain't what they doing at all, okay. And within 5 minutes, they both walked in, and one of them says, I don't want it to, because I sent him a message, and I
mhm,
said, listen, hurry up and get here before I hit this fool in the mouth, okay.
mm,
And one of them walks in. He says, I don't want it to appear as if I'm late due to dereliction of duty. He says, but the organization that was putting on the conference, we were electing officers for next year's conference.
mhm,
So we looked up, and the time had gotten past us. So I'm here. So the question that those situations always put me in the mind of, how did you get to the point of believing that they were so drunk and high from last night with no information about anything? How did you arrive at that? And the only way that you can arrive at that is if you already got personal bias against black men. You
mhm,
know, it's the same maligning that black men, I don't care what your accomplishments are, you're gonna face that same maligning.
mhm,
I was Hell, I was maligned in front of, the 100 Black Men of Houston.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the ironic thing is that I am giving a Black History Month speech for them, and my ex had my son down there.
Mm.
And he's like, "Oh, hey, Dad, blah blah blah." He runs up, hugs me, this and that. We chop it up a little bit. I end up giving a speech, and I'm getting my stuff. I'm getting ready to go. I don't do a lot of that hobnobbing. People like, "Oh, you should socialize more." I ain't really into that.
Right.
Two of the brothers, okay, high ranking in the 100 Black Men, they come up to me and say, "Who was that came up and talked to you?" I said, "That was my son." They said, "That was your son?" I said, "Yeah, James." I said, "That's James Thomas Jones the fourth. I'm James Thomas Jones the third." And their mouths fell open. Oh, we were told that you were a deadbeat dad, and that you didn't accomplish anything in your life, and this and that, and blah 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 blah. Okay.
Wow.
And my question to them was this: but did you believe her?
Mm. Mm.
And they said, "Yeah, we did." So y'all the 100 Black Men, and y'all can be unduly persuaded just on the word of a person with no evidence
Mm.
whatsoever about the person. If those who are seeking or pretending to uplift Black America think that way about Black men, we have no chance. We have no chance, because if you're sitting down and you're having a meeting, and I've been in meetings where supposed to be talking about building a Black Wall Street in Houston. They have a street
Mhm.
here, Almeda, that has done where the turkey leg hut used to be, Brother Mac. Serves your ass right. I'm glad it's closed down. Okay. Um, we're getting together to God made me this way. Um, we're getting together to talk about business. This brother who called the meeting started the meeting off with this: yeah, because niggas can't handle no business.
Mm.
What are
Mm.
we doing here?
Mm.
And that's in many ways what we're talking about when we talk about a damaged racial image. Okay, that's what we're talking about. That your default setting is that Black folk are, you won't say it this way, but that Black folk are inferior. That
Mhm.
we don't have no professionalism about us. That we're not able to handle anything. And one of my arguments is quite simply this: that if you take Black folk who are working in a business that is servicing Black folk, I don't care what the business is, okay, tax accountant, frying chicken, running the cash register, whatever you're doing, they behave often, not everyone, but they often behave as if their subpar service and operations is good enough for some Black folk. Take them and put them in a white setting and see what their attitude is, see what their demeanor is, see when they get to work, because they know if I show up late here, I'll be without a job. If I act a fool here, I'll be up out of here.
Mm.
So when you're talking about Black men dealing with Black folk who are crazy,
Mhm.
there's no way you can win. There's no way you can win. It's just what it is. We had a discussion here once where a brother had called. We were taking calls, and the brother was talking about how he couldn't manage his wife,
Mm-hmm.
that she was unruly, that she was disrespectful, that she was this and that. And we had all these things that were said to him, like, oh man, you're weak. You need to be able, well, why not approach it from a standpoint of, brother, she ain't a wife.
Mm.
She's not a wife.
Mm.
You can fill out all of the forms to get your donkey, have it allowed to race in the Kentucky Derby. I
Mm-hmm.
don't give a damn what you do to that donkey. You can put that donkey on a diet. Okay, you can have him training like he a thoroughbred. When he get his ass down there at the Kentucky Derby, he gonna run and act and behave like he is a donkey.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's getting to the point. It's getting to a point where, to be absolutely honest with you, the path forward may very well be the need for black folk to divest from other black folk,
Mm.
because there is no saving them. They are proud to not know,
Mm-hmm.
eager to be aggressive and angry and to cut a fool. They'll cut a fool with the police, and the police got a gun, handcuffs, and a place to lock your ignorant ass up. So what chance does a man who unwisely coupled himself to her have? What chance does a woman who unwisely coupled herself to a male fool have? None. And these are the discuss, because we talk about these matters as if everyone is sane in Black America. There's a part of me that believes that maybe only 20% of Black America is even sane.
Shit, I think it's even less than that.
I'm trying to be generous. I'm trying to be generous. Okay. Scatterbrained, directionless, without a plan. It's what it is. And when like, there for me, there are certain telltale physical signs,
Mm-hmm.
as unfair as that may be, but it's how I've learned to navigate the world. If you show up with your pants hanging down, hey, brother, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Hey, do what you do, okay? But you can't do it over here.
Mm-hmm.
I had one male student who was like, "Oh, doc, it's just the fact." I said, "Okay, let me." He's talking to me in front of my class. I said, "Let me give you a different scenario. Let's say that it was a female who came up, and she had on a blouse that was low cut, some tight stuff, and her skirt was ultra short. Her butt was hanging out the back of it. What would y'all say?" And the student said, "Oh, she trying to get on." I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, this is the new millennium. You come up to me with your pants hanging down and your drawers hanging off your ass. You trying to get on?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "No, no, no, nothing like that." I said, "But that's the image that you're giving us."
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some people who just honestly, truly are not going to be saved. Like scripture says, the harvest is in, and yet we are not saved. There's some people who are just going to have to be left behind. As difficult as that is for Black folk to really do, because we've always, our historical tradition has been to save everybody, to make sure everybody's okay. It is time for us to stop. Good Black folk, sane Black folk, the Black folk who are in this space right here, to stop setting yourself afire to keep others warm. Don't burn yourself up trying to keep some other people warm who ain't got enough sense to put on a coat and some clothes and to come out the cold.
Mm-hmm. Doc, when you think of dehumanization of black men, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear those terms?
The media, the media, that black men have been, they've done a hit job on us. Once again, going back to the earlier point of if it bleeds, it leads. If it's sensational, they put it up there. And the danger of that is that people believe the images that they see.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, I can remember, and I've talked about this several times in this space right here. I remember when Boys in the Hood came out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there was a character there who sucked on a pacifier for whatever reason. He just
Mm-hmm.
sat on the porch. He was sucking on a pacifier. There were people in my neighborhood who started doing that. It's as if they're tabula rasa. They're blank slates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't stand for anything. So anything that blows in the wind, they're liable to pick it up. The exact same thing with Menace to Society. You know, a situation where Kane's car, you know, green 5.0 Ford Mustang sitting on Dayton's, and he was playing Computer Love. I know that so clearly because there was a brother in my neighborhood who went and got that car, put some Dayton's on it, and played Computer Love all summer, as if
Mm-hmm.
he was channeling the spirit of a character that was made in a Hollywood studio, in a writer's room. And so, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the media. The media is a part of it, and really, when you begin to look at great artistic expressions,
Mm-hmm.
art connoisseurs will tell you that the greatest art replicates life. Somewhere along the way, we got to a point where life was imitating art. And so anything that was promoted in popular culture became black. And you can go all the way back and you can look at Shaft. Look at those black exploitation movies. Brothers
Mm-hmm.
started dressing like that. Brothers, you know, acted like that. You know, they want to be, you know, John Shaft.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at a movie like Juice, Tupac's character Bishop. People
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be like Bishop. Look at Menace to Society. You know, O Dog.
Right.
I got so many students who just adore O Dog, and I'm like, he was a sociopath. Oh, but he
Mm-hmm.
was real. He was real. There's something wrong, and unfortunately, that which is wrong within their mind and in their spirit is not fixable by us. Not at all. And all we're doing is delaying our liberation and our ascension by being anchored to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Doc, about maybe 2 weeks ago, we were discussing rap music. Um,
Yeah,
when we're looking at
when they put us off.
exactly, exactly, we ain't playing no rap music night, but when we're dealing with corporate hip hop versus conscious hip hop, first of all, do you even believe that there's a such thing as corporate hip hop?
Corporate hip hop.
Yeah.
I believe that there is hip hop that is specifically designed and created. Artists are signed to fill sort of a niche. You know, record companies. Everybody wanted at least a gangster rapper.
Mm-hmm.
So you know they wanted a conscious rapper. They wanted a cultural, you know, nationalist rapper,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you're going to get on. I guess I could say. I believe that.
Mm-hmm. So I get because the way I see it as the corporate hip hop versus the conscious hip hop,
Mhm.
and the corporate hip hop won over. And you got all of these rappers today that I don't know their names or nothing like that 'cause I don't listen to it.
Mhm.
But from what I'm understanding, um, the lyrics that they talking about, kill Bill, do this, that other thing, men sleeping with men, and all of this to me was a on purpose derailment, meaning that the corporate arm of media could sell this foolishness greater than they could sell conscious rap, because conscious rap would wake your mind up to a duty or responsibility that you have towards yourself and your people.
Well,
Do you see that?
oh, I certainly see what you're saying, but
Mhm.
what I will say is that I don't believe that there's a conspiracy to necessarily do black folk in, especially by utilizing hip hop. I think that what's happening is that companies are pushing what is profitable. And there is something, once again, about a certain segment of our community who gravitate towards those messages. But one of the more difficult things for people to really take a step back and not look at it through an emotional lens, black folk are not the ones who have historically bought hip hop.
Mhm.
It's been white folk who have bought hip hop. Black people haven't. We've never been the primary consumers of hip hop. We've been the face of hip hop, but we haven't been the primary consumers, and we haven't been the primary financial beneficiaries of hip hop either. You know, if you go back and you listen to, and it's one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, De La Soul's "The Grind Date." One of the members of De La Soul is talking about hip hop during one of the little inserts, and he says, you know, Buster. He's talking about Buster Rhymes. He said Buster was the one that came out and said that hip hop provide jobs for motherfuckers who don't even love it, and nothing could be more truthful. This is a business for them, and they're looking at numbers. How many records sold? What was the profit that came off of that? And those who are the true purveyors and consumers of hip hop, those who love hip hop. I love hip hop. At least to a certain point, I love the hip hop. It's a whole lot of things I don't engage with now because I'm too busy. But we're the ones who know Boogie Down Productions. We know Dead Prez. We understand that when you go back and you look at NWA, go back and look at Dope Man. You know, the Dope Man is killed at the end of the song NWA's Dope Man. So those of us who love hip hop, we understand that commercialized corporate hip hop is something that we really don't mess with. But we recognize that, and we should recognize, we have to recognize that it's those images that are setting the stage for those who have a passing passive association with black cultural traditions and black folk in general, who are setting the stage for who we are in the public imagination. They have that. There's no doubt about that.
So the Nielsen group, they did a research on that
Hmm.
about they don't call it, they switched out the words buyers for
Hmm.
consumers
Hmm.
of hip hop, and they're saying that black audiences are the core. Black listeners are the most dedicated foundational consumers of hip hop. According to the 2023 Nielsen report, Black audience in the US are 6 times more likely than general populations to
Hmm.
name hip hop as their favorite genre.
Of
Um,
course.
their market share is dominant over R&B, and their blast broadcast radio more, and also live streaming to audiences more.
Yeah. See, I don't doubt or dispute any of that.
Mhm,
Okay. What I said is the purchasers of hip hop. Go
mhm,
back and think about even our day. Okay. The 80s and the 90s. We weren't necessarily buying albums. We would
mhm,
take a cassette tape and wait near the radio until our song played. and then
Mhm.
we would record that rascal off of the radio.
Right.
Okay. But if
Right.
you're talking about what I would consider to be a passive listening audience, meaning they aren't paying their money for this, I don't think that I know black folk are not buying the majority of stuff. When I worked at a record store while I was at Ohio State called Coconuts Record and Music.
Mhm.
And it was fascinating for me to be able to see how many records actually sold. Okay. Who sold, how many they sold. And you would have rock groups that hadn't released nothing in 20 years, like the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones are still selling 10 to 20,000 albums every month because white
Mm.
folk are in every way still there, and they're raising their children to be there. There's a historical reference point and tradition. If you go and you listen to some of these white contemporary rockers, they'll talk to you about Sting. They'll talk to you about Metallica, about Led Zeppelin. Okay. Talk to ours. Many of them don't even know who Big Daddy Kane is.
Mhm.
And they'll tell you, oh, if it's before 2000, Doc, that's back in the day. That's before our time. They have no historical reference. Okay. And I remember looking at a sheet because it blew my mind. Ice-T sold 3 albums
Mhm.
throughout the whole nation. 3. And here we look at the Rolling Stones and they had sold like 18,000. So black folk may be listening as far as streaming services, but going
Mhm.
out and spending their money on it, no. I don't believe that they're spending their money on it. Now, if you ask them what is their favorite genre of music, of course they're going to say hip hop. Okay. But if you ask them, when's the last time you bought a hip hop album? That's going to be a different discussion. When's the
Mhm.
last time you bought a hip hop album?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
and see that's the thing, So the idea, you can explain it and
Mhm.
say, well, yeah, is their favorite genre of music? Yeah, they're gonna tell you that, and it probably is that's truthful.
Mhm.
But when did you go and lay down? When's the last time you went and laid $25 down and bought yourself a CD or something like that? Doesn't
Mhm.
happen. I listen to Pandora.
Mhm.
I'm not going to buy no album. I got all the albums I could ever hope to have on Pandora.
Mhm. Right. Right. So looking at it from the consumption that because for instance, I give you an example. One day I was driving and I was listening to R. Kelly. And I forget the song, but he was having an argument with his wife or girlfriend over the phone,
Hmm.
and he was like calling out to somebody, go get the car and all this stuff so I can get over there because she talking about putting my clothes out, and I was singing it right along with the talking it right along with the music, and I happened to look in the rearview mirror and I saw my facial expression,
Mm,
and it matched what I was listening to, and I'm not angry, I ain't mad at nobody, but me actually verbalizing the song,
mhm.
it, and I didn't realize it, that it came with emotions, and it came with, turning your face up and really
Yeah,
feeling the energy of it.
yeah,
And, I look at that, and then when we look at the songs that, these rappers are making out here today, and it brings an energy that comes with that.
oh yeah,
And I think that that is a system or a tool to keep the dehumanization of Black men popular. It keeps it roving, it keeps it moving, it continues to bring life to it. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I agree with that. Because that throws me back into the thought that there's a grand conspiracy. Let's throw it being a let's throw any thought of it being created to dehumanize black men. And let's look at it from sort of a purely capitalistic economic standpoint. Do you think that a major record company would produce positive, uplifting music for black folk if it sold 10 times as much as negative music?
I don't think they would. If
See,
they don't have if they don't have a black board, I don't think that they would.
I don't see it. I look at it from a standpoint of this is what's selling. This is what is hot right now. It's the exact same thing that we saw with Public Enemy surrounding the Malcolm X movie. That was what how many X hats were sold?
Mm-hmm.
How many onks were sold surrounding X Clan, Grand Verbalizer, Funkin' Lesson, Brother J? Okay, how many LA Raider jackets were sold as a result of NWA? Okay, so many jackets were sold that Cube had to come out with that line with quit giving juice to the Raiders because Al Davis never paid us. Okay, you ain't getting no money off of that. But that's what was hot. That's what was selling. We went through a black nationalist phase. Then we entered into what I would consider to be a consumerism, materialistic phase when you had Puff and Mace and they had on the shiny suits and things like that. That's what sold. And that moment has never really left us. We didn't swing back to a black nationalist position because you can't make black nationalism a commodity. Whereas if you look at what Puff them were doing, every single element, every single part of that could be packaged and put on a shelf and you could purchase it. Even their look, which when you really think about it, you got to be a savvy rascal to be able to put a look up on a shelf. And the way they were putting that look up, it's the clothes, it's the jewelry. Go back and listen to some of the stuff from that period, especially the sister that is popping in my head right now is Lil Kim. Go back and listen to Lil Kim and Foxy Brown, and listen to how it almost seemed like they had a high-end designer catalog sitting in front of them as they rhymed, because all they're talking about are these designer labels, and they're still doing that to this day. It's different women who are doing it, different men who are doing it, but they're still doing it because it's profitable. That there is an incredible profit margin associated with that. Like the last show that we did 2 weeks ago, where I talked about Tommy Hilfiger giving Snoop that sweater to wear on Saturday Night Live when he performed. Tommy Hilfiger said, that sweater cost me $25. He said, by Monday, we had sold 50,000 of them. So it's, you wouldn't get a Chuck D, you wouldn't get a Rakim to be able to wear something and it be sold out throughout the nation within 48 hours. So I think that I don't think that because many of these record executives like L.A. Reid, Trick, these guys they have bosses, they have stakeholders that they have to answer to, and let's be very clear that when you meet, and we've seen this with UPS, we're seeing it with Amazon as well. The stockholders, they want to see you turn a profit. Those who own these companies, they want to see you turn a profit. So you need to figure out what is it that's hot in the streets. And what's hot in the street is NBA YoungBoy, not Nas.
You know, the thing is that I think there's a calculated decision, you know, like the movie Malcolm X, as you talked about, with
Hmm.
the X gear and all of that.
Uh,
And Warner Brothers, I think it was whatever movie company that Spike was dealing with, they stopped payment.
yeah.
So, you know, they were like, we're not going out there and paying that kind of money for that. No, we're not doing it. So he had to go out and raise the rest of the money from Oprah Winfrey and all
Just
these
hand in
other,
hand.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah, in order to produce that. Because what the people behind the scenes wanted to be able to do was produce a rift between the Nation of Islam and regular everyday black people who looked at Malcolm X as that's my leader, that's my hero, and you know, paint the nation with a very negative brush. So there's behind the scenes, there's always this hidden hand. And when we look at rap music or look at Michael Jackson, right? He made the song where he said, "Do me, do me."
Uh-huh.
And they made his ass go back in the record studio and take that "Do me, do me" part, take it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mike had to go
See,
back and take it out. They
see,
made they made a mental switch that we're going to promote gangster rap as this is what real rap music is. This is quote unquote what people want to hear. This is what they want to listen to,
yeah,
and
but
they push
see,
that and then
but
put
I don't think.
down conscious rap.
Yeah, but see, I don't think that you're saying anything different from what I'm saying. Okay, because when you say that this is what people are listening to now, okay, one has to really kind of. 50 Cent talks about this sometimes. He says, when you see something that I'm doing, he said the momentum for that to start was probably about 5 years ago. Okay. You're seeing it as it's rolling now. He said, but took a lot to get that momentum rolling. This is my, it ties directly into what I was saying earlier about the idea of tabula rasa, of people being blank slates, and they, you can really influence them a great amount by media images. Think about it this way. What, okay, if we're talking about profits, okay, what amount of an image, especially a negative image, okay, a gangster image, because America loves its gangsters.
Mhm.
How many of those do you need to produce before people get a taste in their mouth that that's what it is now, that that's what I like, that that's what I'm going to support? My argument is that when you have a situation where record executives say, and I believe I said this earlier, we need a gangster rapper. We need somebody that can fill that void for us. And when they go and find one and he is commercially successful and people are in many ways riding with him and they're like, yeah, yeah, I really like that. I like the stuff that he be talking about. Let's go get another one. And then let's go get another one. Now, do these people have any care about black folk at all? No, I'll give you that. But when you look at it from a numbers standpoint, and like Spike Lee, Malcolm X, I was reading something that said that none of Spike Lee's movies, maybe one or two of them, ever made money or significant money. Malcolm X didn't make money. So when you have a situation where, and let's use Lorenz Tate. Lorenz Tate was in Menace to Society and then Love Jones. Okay. He was Old Dog in Menace to Society and Darius in Love Jones. Menace made money. Love Jones didn't. We have not seen another Love Jones because they didn't make money off of it. Now, if Love Jones was, a story about a black poet, if Love Jones had made $400 million, do you not think we wouldn't see a series of Love Jones? Because these people are principally aiming at making money. But when you're talking about the production of black images and black stories, we have no reliable way of knowing if the minds that created these images that are going to have so much influence upon our people, if the minds of our people, if those images that were created are coming from pro-black people, regardless of if they're black or white writers.
When we're looking at the Malcolm, because Malcolm X, that movie, it did make money.
How much
That
money did
movie
Malcolm make?
double its budget. It made over double its budget because the production was 35 million, and it grossed.
No, Malcolm cost more than 35 million.
Mm-mm,
It
look
had
it up.
to.
Look it up.
That
35
damn,
million.
that damn movie was 4 hours long, man.
35 million. That's how much it cost. 35 million. And the movie grossed worldwide a total over 73.1 million at the
Bill,
box.
what did it gross domestically?
Let's see. Domestic gross was 48,169,000. That's what it was.
So it made $13 million.
Domestically.
It made $13 million domestically.
Domestically, right.
Okay.
So,
What did other major movies during that time? What else came out during that time? What was the big blockbuster movie that came out during that time?
let me
Not
see.
a black one. What came out with Malcolm? With major white stars.
Okay, let's see what it says. Dracula came out. Home Alone 2 came out. Aladdin, Bodyguard, that's Whitney Houston. Passenger 57, that's Wesley Snipes.
Okay, let's look at Bodyguard. What did Bodyguard make? And see, I agree with Brother Mac. After taxes, it might have broke even.
I'm on the way.
Let's see. The production budget was 25 million. It grossed worldwide 411 million. Domestically, it made 122 million.
So where would you put where would you invest your money at?
Well, I don't think it's about the investing the money. I think that when we look at Malcolm X and know that it did make money, it didn't lose money, it did make money. And it had a pretty decent. I mean, anytime that you can double what you made, that's pretty decent. The thing is that Malcolm X was a for a niche group. Bodyguard was, hey, open Kevin Costner, quote unquote, leading white man that, people want to love and go see,
I
mixed
ain't
up
giving you
with
that one.
a leading black woman that
I ain't
everybody
giving you
loves,
that one.
and
I
then
think
want to go to the movie and hear this woman say, "Oh, what? You don't want to fuck me no more? Come on." Versus going to the Malcolm X movie
was that
and
in the bodyguard?
the white man is the devil and he
Was
done
that?
tricked
Wait a
you
minute. Whoa,
and
whoa, whoa, whoa.
moved you
Wait,
and
whoa.
this, that,
Back
and that.
up. Back up. Back up. Was that in the bodyguard?
Hell yeah, that was in the bodyguard. Because when she said it, and I watched it as a
Who
child,
said
I'm like,
it?
oh shit, she said that.
Who said it?
Whitney Houston said that.
See, I never see. I don't watch them white films, man. You be over there dibbling and dabbling in white culture. I've never seen the bodyguard.
Yeah, she said that. I remember that shocked the shit out of me to hear her say that. But that's what she said. That's what she said. See? So there's a big difference
And
in
what?
the two movies and what's seen
They're, they're both.
as
They're both.
acceptable.
They're both movies.
Yeah, but they're both movies. They're both movies, but both movies have a different mentality group. Different mentality group. Because one group is talking about separation and getting away from your enemy, and the other group is talking about being
Nah,
with your enemy. The other
nah,
group talking about having sex with your
nah,
enemy. It is totally two different mindsets in
nah,
films. Totally
nah,
two different.
nah. See, I disagree. I disagree
Definitely.
because
Totally two different.
you're talking about um, one of the most significant historical figures of the 20th century.
Don't matter.
And
She allowed them to
and
put that in the script and she to say it
no.
without
I'm talking about Malcolm. I'm talking about Malcolm.
what?
But what I'm saying is quite simply that when you look at what Spike put on that screen, okay, let's be clear. For me, it was disappointing because it was more of it had too much cultural framework, okay, and not enough of Malcolm's political ideology in it. Okay. You got people in here, Lindy hopping, they getting conks, they getting all. Come on, man. Come on.
I think that was an important part. Yeah, I didn't know nothing about all of that stuff. So, but I think that was a pertinent part
You read the autobiography
see,
of Malcolm X?
to see from where Malcolm came from and to actually see what it takes to conk your hair and what you're willing to let this shit be burning hot so you can get your hair straight like white folks. It's something to be able to see because I've never experienced that, would never experience that. But to be able to see, damn, you mean you got stuff burning in your head. You want to be like white folks so much, you're gonna put this burning shit in your head that if you ain't got it out the out your head quick enough, it's gonna burn your scalp. You that sick. I mean, it was something to be able to see and to internalize the depth that they
Oh,
would go to just to fit in. I think that was masterful.
to fit in.
You got to be able to understand from whence it came and how deep that mind trap goes.
We'll never agree on Malcolm because I did not like I thought Denzel's performance was masterful.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't appreciate the emphasis not being put on Malcolm as a political figure. I just didn't.
Max says, ironically, both movies made Denzel and Whitney mega stars. They ended up making that movie, The Preacher's Wife, because of their box office success.
Another movie I didn't see.
Very interesting. And is one thing we can look at it like this, because I think this even helps with the point that I'm making, is that Denzel didn't get an Oscar for Malcolm X, but he did get an Oscar for Training Day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a female actress, Halle Berry.
Monsters Ball.
She got an Oscar for Monsters Ball.
I've seen that Monsters Ball was something.
If this doesn't show that there's a certain mindset, whether you call it conspiracy, whether you want to RICO their ass together, it shows a mindset that they want to depict Black people as a certain thing and give them awards when they excel at being that monster, at being that enemy against your own.
But
We'll give you millions of awards for that.
What I'll say about that, and I'm not pushing back against what you just said, but what I will say about that is quite simply that is from the white lens who we are. And look at white folk just ignorant. One of the things that for me, and that threw me completely off reading that foolishness, but one of the things is quite simply that if you look at white music, their evaluation criterion for excellence is how you can replicate what somebody else did. If you can replicate it, then you know, hey, this was masterful. What you're seeing with Black folk getting awards for these less than positive images is it is in many ways the acting out the fulfillment of what is in the white imagination of who we are. So you're correct. That's what they think about Black women. That's what they think about Black men. Okay. But I don't see it as necessarily a conspiracy. I see it as a natural byproduct of being raised in a nation that has maligned Black folk from the very beginning to this very day. This is who they believe that we are. And I don't believe that they are. I think that you have to sense that something is wrong for you to become really conscious of it, conscious of your viewpoint to the point where you can analyze it and then take some action to correct it. They don't see anything that needs to be corrected because from their lens, that's who we are. And unfortunately, far too many of our people look at us through their lens because they're consuming the exact same diet, intellectual diet. And that's why, you know, I try to guard my mind by not going and looking at these old white movies that you Negroes have digested and are now letting it guide y'all thinking in your minds. And I'll tell you another thing. Okay. Django was out 5-6 years before I saw it. Okay. What? Yeah, I had not seen Django. I had no idea that where you had got that doggone song that would open up the show. I had no idea where that song came from. until I
What?
watched Bingo, and I said, "Yo, that's the song that he used." I had no idea. I said, "Where you get this song?" And I ain't never heard. It's right here. Yeah.
We had that song going for years, Doc.
I had no idea where that song came from.
Mm,
I had
mm,
never
mm,
I boycotted Django because I said I didn't think that Quentin
mm,
Tarantino should produce a film on slavery
mm,
that could become the definitive
mm,
historical
mm,
perspective of Black folk. So I refused
mm,
to see it.
mm, mm.
Yeah, I had no ideas. I don't go um, consuming this stuff. I have a Black mind and a Black soul. I don't go with it on that. And that's why when you said that about Whitney, I'm still like, hell, I didn't know that was what was going on in the Bodyguard.
Mm, 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 mm. Wow. Yeah, look here. I saw that movie and went to the movie theater and saw it, and I was just like, yes, yes.
Listen, I had never seen it, and when I did watch it, I said, what kind of foolishness is this right here? He shot the white man a good 300-400 times, and he's screaming out, "Stop shooting me! Stop shooting me! God damn it, stop shooting me!"
Boy, that was my movie. That's my favorite movie. I ain't gonna lie. That's my favorite movie. I love that.
I had never
I
seen
love that.
that movie. And when that song came, I said, "That's where that song come from."
Mhm. Yeah, we had that playing for years.
Years. I had no idea where that. I said, "Where he done found this at?" Yeah. And watching that doggone Django, I said, it all makes sense now. Where that song
Exactly. So, Doc, dealing with the dehumanization in our own minds, that we have to stop it. What are the key things that must be done to stop it?
guard your intellectual diet, like like you guard your credit score. We are a little too ready to go and consume things, and thinking that we can consume these types of things and they will have no long-term effect upon us. I believe that everything that we do consume, if we consume it, it's like anything else. We consume it in moderation. Um, we're going to be able to in many ways digest it and get rid of it. But I think that if you overdose on it, that a little bit of that moves you get moved a little bit, as far as your world perspective goes, and how you're looking at things. So there's some things that for me, if I'm going to engage them, I engage them with the understanding that I'm looking at this to analyze it, not for any type of information. And dare I say that a lot of people do not operate with that level of highbrow thinking, that I'm not watching this to consume it, to be entertained by it or what have you. I'm watching it like with Django.
Mhm.
Watch Django to see what Quentin Tarantino said about Black folk. That's what I watched it. I can't, like, you just had Tranquil's crazy ass talking about Steven being my favorite, gift. Um I really honestly could not have told you, and I know that she's talking about Samuel L. Jackson in
Mhm.
in Django, but if you were to just ask me what his character's name was, I wouldn't be able to tell you,
Mhm.
okay? Because I didn't watch it from a enjoyable and trying to get the storyline. I was specifically looking at what is this man trying to say to us about the Black experience.
Mhm. Okay, thanks. We're going to share a quick video real quick. Yeah.
World War II, black men died at Pearl Harbor. Black men died in Guadalcanal, in the Solomon Islands, in the Philippines, at Iwo Jima. Black men died in North Africa fighting the Germans. Black men died at Anzio Beach, at Palermo, at Naples, to free Rome, to free Paris, to free Europe. Damn it! We died to build America. And America has rebuilt Germany and Japan, and the nigger is still suffering and dying in the streets of America. World War II.
All right, so there we have Minister Farrakhan talking about what happened in different wars where black men died. Japan, Germany, America, of course. And then he says that the nigger doesn't have anything. So he's making it two different things. Black men died in all of these wars, but the nigger. So two different type of thinking of black men, the black man and the nigger. Doc, why do you think he made that declaration of the two, showing what black men have done, and then America has went out and rebuilt these countries, but the nigger has nothing? Why do you think he made that?
Well, I think that once again, it comes back to that lens and that perspective that we're talking about. From his perspective, when he's talking about Black folk, he's not only talking about their courage and their valor and their contributions to world wars, but he recognizes them as Black men.
Mm-hmm.
When he changes his focus to back here, and he's looking at what white folk have not done here, but what they've done abroad, and let's be honest, what they've done for other European nations. They have not, shan't not, will not, ain't gonna ever do that for the nigger, because that's what they look at you as a nigger. Okay, and it takes us back to an earlier point about the racial brand, about the racial image. That's what they look at you as. I mean, you have to really think about the fact that we haven't been given reparations that are definitely deserved. We haven't received that for our suffering that happened here. Whereas the Jews who were killed in Germany, they get reparations paid not just by Germany, but also by the United States of America. I told you I was a fellow at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum for a time period. And that solely is due to the fact that they're more respected than we are. Mm-hmm. Their image is not a buffoonery of being clowns, of acting, having your women out in the street acting a fool, having your men out in the street acting a fool. You don't deserve reparations because you are a nigger. And that's what's coming from the white lens. Okay, so the idea of, and let's be honest, out of all populations that have ever existed in this nation as American citizens, there is not one that has proven to be more loyal than Black folk to America, and there is not one that has received fewer benefits for their loyalty than black folk.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what I think Minister Farrakhan is talking about. Where's yours at?
Mm.
Because in many ways, and this takes us back to when Khaled was on the Phil Donahue show, and he talked about how if a German officer was captured, he was able to go into the white mess hall and eat, whereas black soldiers who are fighting on that side are not allowed to go in there and eat.
Mhm. Exactly. Now, dealing with, I'm gonna say it like this: that there's no way that the nigger, the nigger mentality, will ever be able to stop the war on black men. Never, they will never be able to do it.
Yeah,
But it's
but see, I think that when just as you used it right there,
mhm,
you're creating a difference between the nigga and black men. They don't
correct,
they don't do that.
correct, correct, 1,000%. And so my point is that as we always, close out the program, feel the nigga in you, I'm gonna feel the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. That part of our being,
Hmm.
that nigga part, has to die. It has to. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't think you would have to correct me on this part because I could be wrong. But I don't know that necessarily the churches that we have on damn near every corner in black communities are able or even set up to kill the nigga. I think that a lot of it is to enable the nigga. There is certain, and I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly because not all Christian churches are like this. I do know of some that are definitely not like that, that they do produce good, strong, willing black men.
Hmm.
They definitely kill the nigger within.
Hmm.
They're not the majority, but they do exist.
Hmm.
How do we make them the majority? Can we make them the majority without getting physically involved? Meaning that we got to go into some of these churches and just shut that shit down. Literally, you're not preaching that bullshit up in here today. You're not making niggas up in here to literally shut it down. How else can we get this done?
Well, as a man thinketh, so is he. So
Mhm.
you're at a distinct disadvantage when the qualifications to stand up in a pulpit within a black church are as dubious as one, God told me to come preach. Okay, he called me. That's one path there. And a probably equally frequent path is going to sit at a white seminary and learn the gospel and theology at the foot of white folk. You have to disrupt that, and it's just what it is. There's no getting around that. That you're talking about dealing with tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that are being siphoned through businesses and your churches. I call it the church as a business. You're you're trying to disrupt that.
Mhm.
They're going to close ranks as they always have because they're financially profiting off of that that is not working for our people. I sit up and I watch the brother. He's finally back on after he had that affair. Has a show called All Things Theology, where he
Mhm.
talks about these very outlandish pastors and their sermons and their presentations and what have you. Many of those people, and let's be fair in saying this, and I'm definitely trying to be fair. Malcolm, when he was incarcerated,
Mhm.
was looking for a life raft. Okay, and fortunately, that life raft came in the form of the Nation of Islam and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. An argument could be made that for people who are struggling and suffering and trying to survive, that religion becomes a life raft for them.
Mhm.
If it's keeping them afloat, what do you want them to do, to let it go and to sink to the bottom of the river like they did, like they were before this life raft came? Um, it's going to be a very difficult thing to do because they have bought into what is being taught so deeply, so fervently. It is the only possible reality. How you disrupt that, I have not an idea. Not an idea, because it's almost as if, and we, we talk about the Trump supporters in this way,
Mm.
that they're in a cult.
Mm.
Let's be very clear that there are many black churches that are not feeding their people a proper hermeneutic, nutritious diet, intellectual diet.
Mhm.
And definitely dive into the idea of being a cult. How do you disrupt that? I don't know. I don't know if you can. I don't know. I don't know if you should even aspire to. I believe that you may be better served by just going ahead and building your own and showing them the fruits of your labor, what you're over here producing,
Mhm.
versus trying to attack them. Because if you try to attack them, 9 times out of 10, they're, number one, not going to listen to you at all. And they're going to dig their heels in the sand, in the dirt, and refuse to move.
Mm. So, Doc, when we're looking at our spiritual life, I guess if we want to use that, um, because we have to be able to, I guess, tap into an essence that is greater than ourselves, right? To help push and move us forward with the right thinking,
Hmm.
with the right behavior. Um, it's not something that's should be played with or even toyed with, because we've seen, if we're going to look at Malcolm, we look at the Nation of Islam, we see what it has produced and what its ability to produce.
Hmm.
If we look at some of the great Christian preachers that um, gave manhood to black men to stand up and say, no, we ain't having this BS. We're going to shut this shit down right now. You
Hmm.
know, these things, these examples must be over and over redone continuously, like we're pushing out an assembly line,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Um, uh,
it's that concept that we talked before about manufacturing consent.
mhm,
We need to
mhm,
all be we need to all understand what is the outcome that we're looking for. And once we can agree on what the outcome is, which is the liberation and salvation of the black nation, the development and building of strong black families.
mhm.
Now, how do we do it? That's but for far too long, when you're talking about black religion, you're talking about um, these types of things. Let's be very clear. Have these churches had much of a discussion about what is the outcome that they're looking for, or are
I
they
don't
just showing
think
up?
they
Are they just showing up and they trying to build a wing onto the church? And
Yeah.
so that's a problem right there.
Hmm. Now, I remember I was in this, well, I was on post. I was when uh, what's his name? Chavis, Benjamin F. Chavis,
And Chavis,
right, became a minister in the Nation of Islam.
yeah, NAACP first, right?
Right, exactly. And he was doing tours. And when he got in Nashville, I was on his security detail. And I was in the meeting with him and other Christian ministers.
Hmm.
And they said to him straight up, they're like, look, we can't all do what you did. You left your thing and walked into the nation and got a good spot, and you taken care of.
Hmm.
And you come here telling us we need to change how we teach this and change how we teach that. But this is how we get paid. This is how we make our living.
Yes.
So you asking us to do a whole change that will definitely attack how we make our living if we change up how we teaching this thing. And then they're like, we can't do that. And I'm on post, meaning, I'm his security and I'm listening. And I'm like, so damn, y'all know that y'all just after fucking dollars? It's beneficial? You mean to tell me you understand it's beneficial
Hmm.
to keep our people ignorant so that you can have a payday?
Hmm.
Shock the shit out of me that they freaking admitted this.
When you sit there and you think about, if you've been teaching people a false, dim-witted ideology, what happens when you change it? Instant rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to leave. If nothing else, they're leaving because they're going to say, no, 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 I don't like that kind of teaching. I don't know what he was up there talking about, because you have had them for so long on milk, and you think that you can give them some meat? No. I can tell you stories of, because I have quote unquote men of God within my family, and I remember going to visit my dad's brother. I'll just refer to him in that way. That's the closest that as I can get to him. Go up there to his church, just popped in just to see him. And he says to me, he said, "Oh man, I wish I known that you was coming. I got some stuff planned. I ain't gonna be able to, to go out to dinner with you, nothing." He said, "So, all right, but hold on." I watched him go over to the collection bucket and take out some money and hand it to me. He said, "Yeah, go ahead, have yourself a nice dinner. Blah 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 blah." It's a hustle for a lot of them. It's a hustle. When I was in Ghana, and I met this brother who was a preacher, and we're sitting there talking, and he had actually went to school to be a mechanic and had graduated and everything, had his own little shop and this and that. And he said these people here are so poor that they can't even support one garage. He said, so I had to go into preaching. And he said, and my brother, the Lord pays well. And that, what do you say to that? That, this is how he is making his living. And if the goal isn't to uplift and liberate Black folk, and if that's not the outcome that you're looking for, then you're going to become an exploiter of the people. Period. And it just becomes in many ways ceremonial. That we show up here on Sunday, we might come on Thursday, might have Tuesday Bible study, might, but make sure you bring them tithes in and them offerings in.
Mm, mm, mm.
And that's what
Wow.
it, that's what unfortunately that's what it boils down to for far too many people, that they're not going anywhere, that this is just entertainment for them. They're in many ways treading water, and they're willing to live a lukewarm existence here on earth with the hope that they're going to be able to make it into eternity in the heaven.
Mm, mm, mm. Wow. Wow. The value. Do you think that during all of this, that our own internal value as men um, gets lost when you look at the weight of the being a provider, being a protector, being a maintainer,
So
and you see that you fall short of these, then there's a devaluing of yourself.
almost certainly, well, certainly that's what happens, every time. And it is the super highway to depression. And once you hit depression, you're going to have a situation where you're going to stop taking care of yourself. And
Mm,
when I say stop taking care of yourself, I mean going to the doctor, um, being able to maintain and keep a job, being able to arrive on time to things. We all know at our core who we are at our best. And gradually over time, life can whittle that away from you. And once you reach a certain point, you'll look up and really be wondering, how the hell did I get here? And you
mm,
got there by one little stutter step and compromise after another. So the idea of, and this is one of the most damaging things that non-white men can do to themselves. It is to reduce themselves to just a paycheck, to just a provider. Because regardless of how hard you try, there is no guaranteed way. And we're seeing this play out right now. There's no guaranteed way for you to get a job.
mm,
And there is no guaranteed way for you to make more money once you secure gainful employment. So, devoid of a, a significant wage that allows you to provide for a wife and some children, and more than likely some parents and maybe a couple other family members. Devoid of that, are you a man? Are you a man if you can't provide for yours?
mm.
And that's any, can you keep your manhood intact when you see your children walk through the living room and they haven't eaten today? What does
Mhm,
that do to your mindset, to your psyche? What does that do to your soul?
mhm,
And principally, people
mhm,
react in one of several ways. They either turn to drugs and alcohol to dull that pain, some form of escapism, maybe even eating, or they leave the entire situation because it's too painful to look at.
mm. Exactly.
And you add to that a woman that you produce children with, that you may have even married, who is all up in your face telling you that you ain't shit, you blah 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 blah, but she's got her own psychological issues and frustrations that she's dealing with.
Mhm,
You're supposed to be able to weather that and remain whole and sane. Very few are going to be able to meet that mark. Very few.
mm, mm, mm. Definitely. 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 The weight, because there's weight to be a black man, that Black women don't understand, Black children don't even understand,
Mhm.
and unfairly criticizes Black men for not being able to meet that expectation, and looking at other people who didn't have to go through what Black men have to go through.
Mhm.
It's unfair for Black women. And what I found, Doc, and I'm going to end it with this, is that Black women, not all, not all, but Black women are turning their children against their fathers,
Oh yeah.
because
Oh
either
yeah.
the father decided that, hey, look, you're too toxic for me, or, this ain't working. And they're turning their children to be enemies
Mhm.
to their dads.
Certainly.
And they get away with it. And the court will enforce that judgment.
Mhm.
And it's sickening.
Yes.
It's really sickening. I overheard a colleague one day talking, and she was saying how she got her baby daddy locked up. The
Mhm.
judge asked her, you know, do you want him to go to jail? Oh, yeah, I want him to go to jail. He ain't paid me, send his ass to jail. And I was like, did he go to jail? Oh, yeah, she locked his ass right on up. And I'm like, wow. What about the baby? What about the child? Daddy's definitely gone now.
Mhm.
But there's pride,
Yes.
Doc, pride
Mhm.
getting him locked up.
Celebration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Well, it's not crazy unless you were raised in a sane situation. But if you were raised in chaos, conflict, and confusion, this is an exciting moment. This adds to the story that you can tell other folk. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you know what I had to do. Uh, you know, uh, I had to put the white man up in this shit.
Right,
They take pride.
right.
They take pride in that. It's just what it is, and there is no deterring them
Mm-mm.
when ratcheted up with this emotion. One of my former students, he asked me this. He said, Doc, what I don't understand is why they got to go so far.
Right.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
because that's who they are, and they're going to continue to push, and they're going to continue. And let's be very clear that this system does not punish them for lying,
No, it doesn't.
providing half truths. It in
Mhm.
many ways encourages it,
Mhm.
because you can come up in here and you can tell a bald faced lie
Mhm.
about what occurred, okay, and be financially rewarded for it. Not
Mhm.
to mention the exhilaration that you get for, ha ha, yeah, I got one over on him. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. That's, for some of them, that's enough to be able to malign your character, be able to go and talk shit about you, and
Mhm.
knowing that they deserve an ass whooping for what they've done.
Mhm.
But if you touch them, then
Mhm.
they really got you.
Mhm.
Now you're going to jail, if not prison, and you really ain't gonna be able to see your child. And the child support count is still adding up. It's accruing every single month,
Mhm.
despite you being incarcerated. So
Mhm.
there is an inducement, an encouragement for them to behave in this manner.
Mhm.
And don't get me even talking about the fact that the one who's paying the child support, that is under such financial hardship, is the one that has to also go into their pocket and try and get the money together for legal representation. Their
Exactly.
their representation is going to be free.
Free. Exactly.
So
E-
it's one of those, and it takes us back full circle to something I said earlier, that the most important decision that a man will make is who he marries,
Yes.
because she will either help build a kingdom or she will burn that motherfucker down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or have people come up in there to kill you so that she can keep living there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in many ways what it comes down to. And so you're really talking about the need to be so careful about who you marry. Okay? Because that is the biggest and most important decision that you're ever going to make. And if you get it wrong, oh my God. Oh my God. If you're at the Kentucky Derby and you got a goddamn mule, do you think that you're gonna be able to run with these thoroughbreds? Not at all. Not at all. You're gonna be sitting here looking like a fool, and people looking at you like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? How come you can't get nothing going?"
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. We're not talking about rocket science here. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about two black folk being able to get together and build a life together. But the truth of the matter is that it takes two to make it work and only one to ruin it.
You got that right.
Yeah, it takes two to make it work and only one to ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
And you ain't dealt with a fool until you deal with a woman who believes that she has been scorned and ain't shit really even happened to her. But she has convinced herself that she has been wrong. That's a problem, a major league problem. But how do you develop crazy? You develop crazy almost from the crib.
Mm-hmm.
So you're foolish to think that at the age of 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55 even, that you're going to be able to undo a socialization that has taken place over her entire life. That's how she views the world. That's how she moves.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people, there are some people who I have a very close friend who she told me two things. She said, "You know what? I give it to you. Your step off game is strong." She said, I've never seen nobody that can just leave and never see that person again. And I mean, literally never see you again. Okay. All right. She said, you ain't never seen people who spend 20, 30 years getting together and breaking up over and over and over again? I said, not that I know of.
Mm.
She said people do that all the time. They continue, get together, they break up, they get back together, they break. The fuck? No, this shit ain't gonna work. Okay.
Mm.
And one of the things that for me, um, you get these little nuggets of wisdom. And Shahrazad Ali said this. She said, I tell black men that if you get with a woman and you can't make it work with her, get rid of that woman and go get you another one. That's that. In many ways, that says it all, because we're
Exactly.
we're, we're all evolving creatures, and what might have fit you at 20 ain't gonna fit you at 40 because you're a
Mm-hmm.
different person.
Mm-hmm.
And so go ahead and make your move and extricate yourself out of that situation, because it ain't gonna get no better.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That's true.
Yeah.
It's 1000% true. Lord have mercy. Mm. All right, Doc, it's time to move to closing comments. And the question that I would love for you to answer in your closing comments, for those who come up with the strategies or the plans or the opportunities to destroy Black men, would you consider them to be an enemy to Black men? And how should we deal with our enemies?
Well, you know, as always, great to be here, brother. look forward to being here. And in regards to this question, yeah, they're enemies, and our enemies are going to come in every gender, every sexuality, every race and ethnicity. One of the things that we really have to get a handle on is quite simply that it's the old. I heard Chuck D say it, but I'm sure that he's not the originator of saying it. That all skin folk ain't kinfolk,
Hmm.
and that goes for even some of the women that we share our beds with.
Hmm.
That they're not necessarily on, they're not wives. They're not looking at the world through what we would term to be um, a proper lens, a lens that is aimed at uplifting Black America. That's the ultimate outcome that we're looking for. They're looking at getting a fucking purse. They're looking at causing some foolishness, having a story, creating a situation where they can have a story to tell folk. So yeah, they're enemies to Black folk, without a doubt. And how do we deal with them? How do we address them? Leave them alone. Let them alone. Okay? And let the world deal with them. And you're seeing some of that right now with a lot of Black women are wondering why, how come they ain't nobody approaching me? How come ain't we're tired. We're tired. You had your shot probably and you blew it, you fumbled it. So we're going to believe that you're a fumbler and just keep it moving and not deal with you anymore. They are for my position, and I'm just dealing within the race. They are one of the greatest impediments to Black folk getting out of this situation that we're in right now. Because what you have decided is you are going to consciously work to destroy Black men. You're consciously working to destroy Black households, Black families. I can't look at you in any other way than as a manipulator, a destroyer, a liar, a cheater, an unwise person, period. And I yield with that, brother.
Thank you, Doc. Beautiful, beautiful words. And I just want to remind everybody that defamation is not just about words, it's the psychological justification for our physical, economic, and political oppression. And it doesn't matter whether it's coming from a white face, a Chinese face, a Black face, man or woman. We have to understand that this is our enemy. And as Doc said, ignore them. Don't give them your life energy. Don't allow them to stop you. Don't you feed into them. Separate, separate, separate. That is the best thing because you can't grow in an environment like that.
Not
You
at all.
cannot. You can't do it. And we need to grow, but you got to get out of there in order that you can grow. And so, as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
So you better get the message and get it straight. You're gonna need some bridge work.